You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
This is Salt and Spine.
I think the beautiful thing about Korea, even as a Korean, every year you go back, and even among Korean and Korean Americans, our joke is that every year you go back, it's something new in Korea. And maybe it's Japan or Asia has that vibe in general, but Korea more so. We went back 3 or 4 times. Every single time we had something to tell.
Hi there, it's Brian Hogan Stewart, and you're listening to Salt and Spine, Stories Behind Cookbooks. And today we're joined by 2 longtime collaborators whose work has helped shape how we understand Korean food in America. I'm thrilled to welcome to our studio Chef Deuki Hong and journalist Matt Rodbard. You might know them from their first book together, Koreatown, which was published in 2016. 8 years later, they returned with Koreaworld. It's not a sequel, we'll make that clear in the conversation, but instead a vivid portrait of what they call a culinary revolution. This new book, Koreaworld, dives into the foods, people, and ideas shaping Korean cooking today, from temple cuisine and regional specialties across Korea to the rise of third-wave coffee culture in Seoul to the unexpected embrace of Italian dishes on Korean tables. And the recipes capture this range, too, from recipes that are really rooted in Korean home cooking to more playful recipes like a radish kimchi granita or even an espresso tonic with orange syrup, as we talk about the booming cafe culture in Korea. In today's conversation, Matt and Deuki talk with me about how they came together to write Koreatown, their first book, how a connection from his baseball team led Deuki into restaurant kitchens, the inspiration behind their newest book, Koreaworld, the shifts they've seen in food media, and how Korean cuisine is shaping our global palate today. We've got a great conversation today, so let's head now to our studio at San Francisco's The Civic Kitchen, where Deuki and Matt joined us to talk cookbooks. Hi, Deuki. Hi, Matt. Welcome to Salt and Spine.
Brian, great to be here. Thanks, man.
Hello, Brian. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here.
Of course. Thrilled to have you. Big fan of both of yours. Deuki, I know you've been in San Francisco for a while, and I see your name all over, and a fan of what you're doing. And Matt, I've been a fan and listener for a long time of your podcast and your work, too. So it's really
mutual,
fun.
Brian. You do great work here, too.
Well, thank you.
I listen to on my runs on the trail, I'm listening to you.
Perfect.
I got your voice in my head.
Yes. Hopefully it's a good thing.
It's a great thing.
Okay,
yeah.
good. Enough about how great we are. Let's get to how great the two of you are. Okay. And your newest book, which you're here to talk about, Koreaworld. So really excited to talk about that. But I want to talk a little bit more about both of you, your careers, how you kind of got to where you are, how you got to work together, and how you sort of formed this collaborative working relationship that you have, and then a little bit about the book. So let's just go all the way back to the beginning. Deuki, you grew up in New Jersey, right? You were born in Korea.
In New York.
Okay,
no, Jersey.
Sorry.
So no, it's actually accurate, Brian.
Actually accurate, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We try to be as factually accurate as possible. So, okay, but you were born in Korea and moved to the United States like early, 1-2 years old.
Yeah, I came for free, as my mom says. Okay. So I think they timed it to make sure that I was a free flight. Yeah,
sure. And grew up in New Jersey. Could you talk a little bit about your relationship with food? I know you took an interest at an early age as a teenager in restaurants and cooking.
I did, and it was through food content. Like looking back on it, I'm pretty not in like a negative way. Maybe it is negative. I'm like so not in the food content. I don't consume that much, but it's so weird because my genesis of it all came from cooking shows, but not Food Network because that was cable, like not accessible to me. But PBS, I don't know if people remember after the cartoons, like Jacques Pepin, Lydia Bastianich, Rick Bayless, they would come on, and I was more enamored by that than any of the cartoons. So I would like skip the cartoon, sleep in, and then see when they came in, and I was just there for 4 or 5 hours a day, and that was my first interest in cooking for sure.
Yeah. And so did you start sort of experimenting in the kitchen, or did you kind of go right to...
I was shy about it.
At like 15 in a restaurant.
I did, yeah. So I saw that content, and I love the fact that back then, very different than now, was very, chef, food, camera, stories. That it was very simple and beautiful. And there was something really raw and beautiful about that I was really engaged in. I didn't really go like, I'm going to try this recipe. I think I had to because, immigrant family, my sister and I were left alone. So we had to cook out of necessity, not because like, I want to try this new dish.
Sure.
But then growing up, my baseball coach, I played baseball pretty seriously, intensely. My baseball coach, Michael Bonadies, my mentor now, started Nobu
Right.
restaurants in Montrachet and these iconic Centrico with Chef Aaron Sanchez. So I obviously at that age don't know who he is. He's just my baseball coach.
Right. Yeah.
I think he just, through his son, he was on the baseball team, just kind of knew I was interested in cooking. He was like, if you're interested in working here, great. If not, I don't care,
Yeah.
and I just took him up on it.
Yeah. And it worked out.
Yes.
And you also are a bowling champ, I understand.
You do your research,
Not
and I
just
appreciate
baseball.
that. This is the first podcast that I get to say, 2000 and whatever.
State champion.
State champion.
Yes.
State champion.
So when it was bowling, were you like the first team, first chair? How does that work?
There's a group of 5 guys.
Okay.
Okay.
4 of those kids were Korean, and I just thought I wanted to put that out there. And it's such an embarrassing thing to share.
It's like a
but I'm so
screenplay.
proud to share
It's
it.
like a screenplay.
I think
Yeah.
so.
I feel like
yeah.
5 Korean state
4.
champion.
The other one was
4.
not Korean,
Oh,
but he
okay.
carried the team, and it was just four boys just
Yeah.
bowling like our life
Yeah.
depended on it.
No, I want to note 2007 New Jersey State High School Bowling Championship.
That dates
oh,
me.
sorry.
That
sorry,
dates
sorry,
me,
sorry,
right?
sorry, 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 sorry.
Did you have a varsity jacket? Did you actually wear
Yes,
the jacket?
and then we used to roll our ball. I don't want
Oh.
to talk about it, but it was one of the highlight of my high school career.
So you're bowling, you're playing baseball, you're starting to take an interest in food,
Yeah.
restaurants.
Yeah.
Matt, you grew up not in New Jersey, you grew up in Michigan.
You got it.
Midwest, yes.
Yeah.
Also fellow Midwester.
Oh, right.
Love it. When did you sort of take an interest in food and particularly then you went on to become a food journalist, but how
Yeah.
did that what did that path look like for you?
The path was indirect. I mean, I grew up a
Okay.
very ambitious eater. My parents, we didn't travel by air a lot, but we would drive everywhere and always try to catch the cool restaurant in the town. And
Sure.
In Kentucky, we'd go to like Walt's Hitching Post and have some great ribs. In
Yeah.
Florida, we'd have alligator hush puppies. And honestly, I grew up really interested in food just by my parents.
Okay.
And then as I progressed, I became a student journalist at the University of Wisconsin, worked as an editor for 3 years, and I ended up moving to New York, working in television first.
Yeah.
Worked at MTV, and I worked in music. So I was like in music writing. But soon in like 2007, I kind of made this transition. I made this decision that I wanted to take food writing seriously. I felt like there was a real gap, and there was a real need for journalists who maybe were trained in other categories to tackle food. And I was like sick of interviewing the band Stella Star. I found myself like interviewing this very like mid band and like talking to some like dumb lead singer about dumb stuff. And I'm like, I'd just like talked to a chef the day before,
yeah.
and I was like, I actually just talked to this amazing person running David Waltuck, who ran this amazing restaurant in Tribeca, and like I was like, do I want to interview more David Waltucks or do I want to interview more Stella Stars? And it was pretty
Sorry,
obvious.
Stella Star fans.
Sorry, Stella Star fans. But I felt like the chef community, and I was starting to really get into just like the community of chefs. And to me, as a journalist, I felt, man, this was a really cool industry. I loved going out to restaurants, going to industry events and meeting people. And I started meeting cheers at like Eater, like the early crew at Eater. I became friends with like Ben Leventhal and Amanda Klute, and also at Grub Street, like Joshua Zersky, Daniel Maurer, and like I started to build community with other food writers, and we just started like getting into the community a lot, and that's when I really started. I worked at a long forgotten website called Metromix, and I was one of the restaurant editors and started reviewing restaurants there, and we were kind of off to the races at that point. And that was 2007, so it's been quite a bit since then that my career has been focused primarily in food.
It was sort of that prime food media moment. You kind of tapped into it right as the world, the country was sort of like pivoting to this celebrity chef era, this like real attention to end resources, which has changed a bit, right? But
yeah,
food media was ripe with resources.
It was a great moment, Brian. It was a really good point to bring into perspective that moment in 2007.
Yeah,
I think Eater started in 2005, but like that's when we like started moving away from covering only celebrity chefs who had been in Food Network for probably around 10 years,
right?
To like more of the local chefs and starting to treat them like the celebrity chefs. So
right.
We started like guys like Andrew Carmelini, Amanda Cohen. Yeah. These are like early. I started writing about Korean food around 2012, which I know we'll get to. So I felt like at that moment early, like we started actually giving a shit about the actual people who do the food and not like the Mario Battalis of the world who were kind of just like, they were just like kind of just doing TV. So that was an exciting time.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of money behind it. I agree. And everything was kind of indie.
Yeah.
Felt like we were like a bunch of indie bands starting up and like some were more monetized than others. I would say like just pushing forward to now, it feels like we've kind of refreshed that with Substack and independent publications like Salt and Spine.
Yeah.
So I think we're actually back to where we were in '07 right now, in a very exciting time in food media. But for me, that was exactly right. Very much this exciting moment in food media.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's interesting. Did you ever work in restaurants?
I worked.
Just a journalist.
I only was a journalist. I never worked in restaurants. I worked at a grocery store for a couple of years. So we did food service, and I did. I worked at I would call it more of a natural food store. So I got to handle food. There were like minimal cafe items, and really I felt like I was kind of getting a sense that food was bigger than what I thought from restaurants at that point. Now I'm really into CPG and writing about founders and stuff. So it's kind of a full circle there too. But I never worked in restaurants, no.
Yeah. So you started working together like 2012, 2013, right?
Yeah.
You sort of serendipitously were paired, well, or not just the two of you, but several people were working on this guidebook to Korean restaurants in New York City. Is that right?
Correct.
And that's how you first met, yeah?
Yep, absolutely.
Exactly. Matt D was in charge of the book. I was one of the judges. And then I get an email one day randomly after this, we're like, oh, it's done. That's cool. We'll never see these people again.
Okay.
And then, like a few months later, 6 months later, Maddie sends an email, and that's how Koreatown kind of got started.
Yeah, we had really collaborated in this guidebook process and really vibed over food. And Deuki is a very, very young chef at that point, but had a lot of ambition and extreme talent, and was super humble and worked really hard on the guidebook. So I was impressed with just Deuki as a worker, but I didn't really know him as a person.
Sure.
But we really started getting together and cooking, and I remember cooking at one of your apartments early on, and just getting a sense that Deuki had like some real sick skills as a chef too, and really through that process we created our proposal for Koreatown,
right?
Which we sold in the summer of 2013 to Clarkson Potter. Francis Lambo was his first acquisition as an editor there. And we felt super fortunate. We still feel very grateful to Francis and the team at Clarkson Potter for seeing the future, truly.
And was that your intention when you wrote a message to Deuki after the guidebook was done, that you wanted to do a cookbook, or did that sort of come about as you started?
Yeah, I always
forming
wondered
this
that
friendship?
too.
Like,
I asked him, but how did it all
ulterior
begin?
motive?
Yeah.
No, I'd been kicking around some ideas for a cookbook independently. So I think Deuki joined while there were some things down. It wasn't we didn't start from a blank slate. Yeah. But for the most part, we developed this idea of the recipe list. And this is a cookbook podcast, so I want to get into the nuts and bolts. So we were trying to figure out what our TOC would be. We'd also wanted to figure out like what Koreatown means, like for us, me being a writer who's not Korean, obviously Deuki being Korean, how we could address the travel, because we knew we wanted to travel for it.
Sure.
And at that time, a lot of cookbooks were done. They were stuck in the studio.
Right.
Most of and I would say all of the Korean cookbooks, there really wasn't a lot of reportage out there. So we knew we wanted to do a different kind of cookbook. Yeah. I think that was my impulse as a writer.
Yeah.
And Deuki as well. Knowing folks around the country, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., we spent a lot of time in those cities.
And also, like, for me, I'm not in the cookbook world. Like, I don't know anything about at that time. I was 23, 24. Like, I didn't know much about really anything. And I think why I was really intrigued by that was, number one, it wasn't like, hey, let's pick the 10 best Koreatown restaurants in LA. Pick the 10 best. That would have been like, okay, we just did that. Like, and that wasn't that intriguing. What Matt really brought, and I think what he brought and why Koreatown was such a success, was that, number one, it doesn't look like a book that people think it'll look like. When we say Koreatown, it's okay, you talked about LA, New York.
Right.
We talk about everyone between. His editorial background, I think, really lended itself really beautifully to how we tell that story of the people, the food, obviously, and just the culture behind Korean food in America at that time.
Right.
So that was more intriguing. But if Maddie was like, hey, we're going to go pick the 20 best restaurants in LA, 20 best restaurants in New York, I'm like, okay. Like, I still probably would have done it. But Maddie, he had a very different vision for it, and I was happy to tag along.
Yeah, that storytelling piece of it. And you spent a couple years working, like traveling around the country, interviewed more than 100 chefs, business owners, really focusing on Koreatown. The book was successful. Did you immediately know you wanted to do another book? And I know we should say this next book, which we'll get to, is not a sequel. You specify that in the acknowledgement. It's not a sequel. But did you know after that first one that there was more to be said, more for the two of you?
Well, the only thing I knew, the short answer is no.
Okay.
I don't know of many things in my life. I don't have a master plan. I'm not
Yeah.
that guy. I'm not that smart enough to do that.
Sure.
I just knew that I would have a friend and a brother. Like I know our relationship would continue, whether a cookbook is in that. And I loved it because we did travel. Like we have so many stories beyond like we were driving through a storm. We were like we were doing photo shoots in a parking lot of a Motel 6. Like there's things that you share that it's beyond the book.
Right.
And the fact is I knew like, oh, we'll have good stories, 10 years later, 15 years later. But I don't think, because the book wasn't the only thing that kind of brought us together and made us close, and it was all the conversations we had. I knew that. I don't know if Maddie did. He's way more smarter.
No.
He's the brainchild of this project. But yeah, for me personally, I wasn't like, 10 years later, we're going to do another book.
I mean, for me, I had a career like Deuki outside of Koreatown or Korean food. Like we both have pretty busy jobs, and I think soon after Koreatown hit, I joined Taste. I started Taste in 2016. So I really, and I've been doing that since. So that's been a full-time job. So I think we both in Deuki moved to the Bay and has I would say one of my favorite bakeries in America. It's just I just was there just now this morning and we're recording this in San Francisco, and man, it's so good. I hope we can get a little bit into that. But so we were very busy, and I think for me, I was just always keeping my eye on Korean food. I remember going to the opening of Otto Boy in New York, and it being like 2018, 2019, and being like, wow, like this is a huge moment. I remember going to like hand hospitality restaurants. Her Name is Han, Take 31, and like new spots, Chodongul's Reboot. And we didn't have a book project. I wrote a book called Food IQ with my friend Daniel Holzman. I worked on other books, had this job. But I was always kind of keeping my eye on what was happening. And it really kind of came into fruition around 2020, the summer of 2020. We were like really just where I was closing out Food IQ, and I think Deuki and I were like, we have some time. It's a pandemic.
Right.
We also just like, man, this moment is pretty cool right now to think about this bigger idea of Koreaworld,
right,
which we ended up calling our book. And we felt like the timing was perfect and right. And so then we decided to write a travel intensive book during the pandemic, which is, we don't really talk about it too much, but it made it a little difficult to write this book because, I remember coming out here with Deuki and, mask mandates and just like not being able to go out into restaurants. I remember we went to Korea in 2021, which was a very challenging trip. To go to Korea during the pandemic and be there and actually have to get government approval to travel there.
Right.
So like that, the whole process was very difficult, but we felt still, even with all the hardships, we found a really, really, really great story that we told in Koreaworld.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that then, because, you say in Koreaworld, you're filling in some of the gaps you missed the first time around. And more importantly, digging into what Koreans in Korea are excited about today and the citizens of Koreaworld are inspired by in their Korean American lives. You mentioned Deuki's Bakery, Sunday Bake Shop.
Yep.
Like, how did you sort of approach this book, right? I think the presence of Korean cuisine in the United States and Korean culture has changed so much from when you wrote Koreatown to Koreaworld. Is that kind of the focus here?
I think we have two angles here, and I think I think we have contrast too. And I want to speak purely as a non-Korean, but also as a journalist, as the food writer. Biggest story of my career and biggest story in food right now as a whole is the story of Korean food's rise in both modern settings and also just traditional food being done in unique ways. So both of those, to me, it's a rich text. We see Pete Wells writing about Korean restaurants as much as he writes about Spanish and Italian restaurants. And I feel like, so as a journalist, the time was absolutely perfect. And really, we felt like the citizens of Koreaworld, the section that we wrote about the people, and we sprinkled throughout the book, was essential, and getting people into the book and profiling individuals large and small with major followings on social media, and people who are pretty anonymous and really have been introduced to the world through the book. We felt it was important, but when we sat down to start thinking about who are our people, it became, we had a long list of like 100, and we had to whittle it down to like, I think we had 15 profiles in the book. So for me, and I'll let Deuki answer more of the culinary side and also the Korean American side, but for me, it's all about the story of this narrative and this arc We call it a revolution
Right.
in the intro. And
Yeah.
it really is a big revolution, a big moment.
That's how you open the book. You say you're about to read the story of a culinary revolution.
And it's a statement. And I remember reading that. It was the first time I read the book as like I got our hard copy. I was like, Maddie, that's you encompassed what we were trying to do. And not only a culinary revolution, but a cultural revolution. I think we'd be remiss or you've been blind the last 10 years or so since we wrote our last book, that in the last 10 years, there's so many things that happen culturally, music, Parasite, Oscars, BTS,
right.
and then the culinary sides of it, World's 50 Best and all that. Like, it's so hard for us to not talk about it. And I think even the title Koreaworld, Maddie came up. So anything Koreatown, Koreaworld, Maddie really came up with. I was like, yes. And
we've collaborated in very special ways.
Sure.
He's giving me way too much credit.
And when first of all, my first title, which I'm glad it never was Koreatown USA. And then Francis is like, dude, that sounds like Guy Fieri. Like, why would you ever do that? I was like, that was a bad idea. I'm sorry. But Koreaworld is such that even that word carries so much. And I like to look at it as it's Koreaworld, right? As we think, plainly put. But this is also, maybe even as a Korean American, this is our love letter to the world, saying this is Korea world. And we got to spend 2 years in Korea. We learned as a journalist, but also as a chef, as a Korean American, as a non-Korean, just learn what's going on in Korea, the regionalities. That we went to Jeju. This isn't just like here's the 10 best things or 20 best things to eat in Korea. We learned as we went and experienced, and with our photographer Alex Lau, and documenting the whole process. Like us three just traveling Korea, and we got to share that in 300 or so pages.
And Jeju is the island?
Yes, it's the Hawaii of Korea. First time I've been there. Was that the first time?
My first time there as well. Yeah. We've only been there once. It's really an unexplored place for me personally, and I hope to go back.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about, because you do in this book give us it's not a travel book, right? But it shows us parts of Korea. There's even, I forget the number, but towards the beginning of the book, I don't know, 15 best things we ate in Korea. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. 21 something. But so there's a bit of you could theoretically use this as a starting point for exploring Korea. Talk a little bit about the travels to Jeju, to other parts of Korea. Anything that like really surprised you as you were researching this book?
I think the beautiful thing about Korea, even as a Korean, every year you go back, and even among Korean and Korean Americans, our joke is that every year you go back, it's something new in Korea. And maybe it's Japan or Asia has that vibe in general, but Korea more so than at least from what I experienced. We went back 3 or 4 times. Every single time we had something to tell. First time was COVID and we had to be quarantined and all this stuff. And then the second time we went during the Itaewon kind of
during the tragedy in Itaewon, we landed a week after to the date.
Seeing the protests and seeing that cultural dynamic play. And it was just really an experience that I really do say Koreaworld is a culture book with recipes. And we got to document a part of it in a very unique time in, COVID and pandemic, but also during this rise of even a bigger rise after Psy and Gangnam Style and all of this. So as a Korean, it was more of a prideful, but different every single time. And I got to do it with Maddie.
I love the point about it being a travel book, because it really is. And I think you can pick up Koreaworld and use it as a bit of a framework for travel. And thinking about not just Jeju, but down south in Jeju, we went to a city called Gwangju and spent time in and around Gwangju. And we spent some time at a Buddhist temple,
right? Yeah,
a real Buddhist temple, not the one on Netflix that might be a little more Hollywood, which is certainly obviously a real Buddhist temple, but that went to one that was less covered and felt more local. And we learned some great recipes there and had a temple stay. And we went up to Gangwon-do where the Olympics were held and learned about buckwheat crepes, and buckwheat production is really cool up there, and the seafood there is probably the best in Korea. We went around Seoul, of course, and really didn't just think about Seoul as like Gwanjan Market, but like really we went all over the city, finding these pockets of creativity. I mean, a neighborhood called Songsu is just such a unique space. It's kind of like Bushwick, or you could call it like North Williamsburg. It's like very rapidly gentrifying, and the whole fashion industry is based there. There's a neighborhood called Ujiro, which is really cool because it's where they did a lot of electronics production in the 80s and 90s, and now these big factories are being gentrified into warehouses. Sounds like San Francisco to me. Sounds like Brooklyn to me.
Right.
But they're having similar struggles, and we write about gentrification through the lens of an individual who's doing some work around pushing back against it. So we think this book is multitudes in this book.
Yeah.
It's not just. We haven't even talked about the recipes.
We haven't. No, I know. I mean, and you mentioned the temples and temple cooking and this push of more plant-forward cooking in Korea. But I do want to talk about recipes. I asked you if anything surprised you during your travels for the book. The thing that surprised me as I was looking is the spaghetti alla vignolo recipe.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? I didn't expect, and in the head notes, you honestly write this here. Okay, hear us out. So it does kind of catch you by surprise as you're looking through the recipes.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I mean, Italian food is exploded in Korea. So that's like one part that I would say is very, very key of our book. This is the modern Korean cookbook.
Right.
And we already wrote about the canon that's called Koreatown. And you could certainly pick that up as well. Like that's all the chigees, the bokkumbaps, all the standard recipes of barbecues. Kimchi's. This is all about modern. We have a big section about coffee and coffee culture.
Right.
We have a V60 recipe,
Right.
Which is in a great espresso, cold espresso drink recipe.
Yeah.
And like throughout the book, we really are bringing modern Korean food into focus.
Yeah.
And that was really our angle. And why? Your original question was about the sequel. It's
Sure.
not a sequel. If we were going to do a sequel, we'd have a whole new barbecue section.
Sure.
The barbecue section would be like all about the barbecue, but we really didn't want to do that. We wanted to have modern food.
Yeah, and talking about modern Korea, it'd be tough it's like doing a book on Tokyo and then not mentioning some of the best pizza in the world you can get is in Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
And yes, if you take a step back, you're like, why is there a very Italian recipe in a Korean cookbook?
Yeah.
But it was our kind of, we're not ashamed. We are very not shy about it. We have a coffee recipe where it has we didn't try to put gochujang in there or kimchi in there or anything like that. This is what's happening in Korea right now, and that is and we like to call it modern Korea, and we just want to show everyone.
I love an espresso tonic. I'm so glad you included that.
It's a great recipe, and Ashley
to try
Rodriguez
it.
helped out with it. She runs a great Substack called Boss Barista, and kind of tossed it over to her. And gave her like this. Look at this is something I had in Seoul at a restaurant called Matt's Cafe in Gangnam, and it's the cafe below the La Mozraka training center. So really heady coffee place. And I was like, Ashley, what do you think? And she did an amazing job.
Yeah, it looks so good. There's is it orange simple syrup?
Yep,
in
exactly.
it?
Orange simple syrup. An orange wheel. Very cool recipe.
And they wouldn't let you buy a mug?
They wouldn't let me buy a mug. I asked them twice. Actually went back there for a third time in January because I'm like just constantly intrigued. First, I want
back to this cafe.
Back to the cafe because I love the cafe. It's a really cool part of Seoul. I love the neighborhood, but also I love that drink. But I'm literally trying to buy a mug every time I go there.
Maddie has this thing where we go, like when he's stuck on stuff, like for example, he's like, I want to find a really good pizza in Korea.
Yeah.
I was like, Maddie, it doesn't exist. Like, but when he's stuck on something, he really goes. We've had some pretty uneventful pizza meals because he's like, we got to go try that.
Right.
We've tried so much pizza in Korea. I think I went back in January without Deuki. I was writing a magazine article. I was literally trying to feature a pizza in this magazine article. Could not find pizza there.
Well, coffee. We've got coffee, even if we don't have pizza. Coffee's exploded, right? Yeah. Over 15,000 coffee shops now in Seoul.
It's an incredible number.
Yeah.
That's a truth number. And I think it's not just in terms of the coffee and cafe culture, it's the roasting. So there's places like Fritz Coffee Company and Mesh are two that really roast their own coffee. And really, Japan gets a ton of press about their coffee culture, which is probably deserved. But honestly, Korea is doing, if not as good, better work with the modern coffee scene. Yeah. Also, it's just like you can find great coffee everywhere in Korea. And I've been going to Korea for 15 years and been there almost 10 times. And I feel in the early days, it was Nescafe.
Yeah.
That's it.
The only shop, I don't drink coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't know the first thing. The only place I'll drink coffee is in Korea called Camel Coffee. Yeah. And they just opened up a spot in LA. So
that's right. You went to the new spot in LA. That's cool. And so that's a really great point about how ideas flow from Korea and America and back. So you've got this thing that third wave coffee in America ends up in Korea. There's 15,000 cafes. Many of them are considered third wave in a really cool way. And then, of course, America imports back Camel Coffee in LA. this like flow of ideas makes covering Korean culture and food so interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Other recipes, I gotta ask about the radish kimchi granita.
Oh yeah.
Can we
That's a
talk
good one,
about
chef.
frozen kimchi a little bit?
Yeah, it's cool.
I am a fan of, as a chef, you're taught flavor, salt, fat, acid, heat.
Yeah.
Love
heard
that
about
book.
those
Love that
four.
book.
Yeah.
Shouts to Samin.
Yeah.
Love her.
In her backyard right now.
we
are,
have texture, obviously, and different types of texture, chewy, and crunchy, crispy, all that good stuff. I think a lot of chefs, I don't want to say a different level or up or down thing, but I think temperature is a element that I think Koreans play with very well. It is another element, not just the flavor, not just the texture. And, even hot Korean barbecue and cold noodles, right? Cold noodles is not it's a weird concept for maybe Europeans or maybe
Icy. We're talking about icy.
Yeah, we're talking
cold.
like ice in your broth.
Like actual icy noodles.
Like there's cold
ice,
and they'll put even colder
Yeah,
on cold,
exactly.
right?
It's cold as you can get.
And it's not just always contrast. It's like you said, it's cold noodles and then icy broth, right? So with this frozen kimchi, we had it at a restaurant called Bongtan, which we call like the Peter Luger's of Korea, like the younger, cooler cousin in Seoul.
Mm-hmm.
And they do this smoked beef rib, and anything that comes out in a panchan is complimentary to the main star. They have like 7 things on the menu, and like 3 of them are side dishes, and they serve one pork dish. Like if you're ordering beef, you have no other options but to order this big king rib smoked, marinated, beautiful dish. And then it came out, and I was intrigued by. It's just kimchi. If you just serve it to me regular temperature, kimchi.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought about it.
Sure.
I don't care. I've had it forever.
Sure.
The fact that they brought it out frozen, and it was frozen, and then this really hot, smoky beef, that hot and cold play is something that's still, I was like, dang it, they got me.
And we
again,
think you can do it at home too. I love that story, Deuki, too. And I think we've been inspired by restaurant meals all over the country and the world. But you can actually make this recipe at home. I've done it before with hot barbecue from your grill, and really having a kimchi granita at your table is like a really cool.
It's a bold statement.
It's a bold statement for a dinner party. Yeah. You can have your sams, you can have your beshu kimchi, your kimchi, but then do like a little radish kimchi granita too.
And let's say you're not gonna make your own radish kimchi, right? Whatever, you always have that liquid after your kimchi. If you even buy it from Costco or whatever, just freeze that and then just shave it with a fork. Just granita.
Yeah, I love that. The audience for the book, you're talking about accessibility for home cooks, right? I know you've drawn a lot of inspiration, as you say, from restaurants, from traveling around the U.S., around Korea, but really designed to be accessible for home cooks. Where do you sort of steer people if they come up to you at an event or a signing and say, what should I be making out of your book?
So many options. I think for me, as somebody who didn't grow up cooking Korean, but I enjoy cooking, I tend to lean towards the stovetop stews.
Okay.
And I think because with Korean stews, they're fast. They go fast. One pot. I like our beefy tenjang which is a version of the classic kind of breakfast, like everyday soup, with tenjan, which is the brown, tub you'll find at H Mart.
Yeah.
But you build the in your pot, you're building it like tenjan, garlic, ginger, some scallion. You're going to add a little bit of sliced brisket. We take inspiration from the meat market, Mungjeong market. We went up there in northern Seoul, and we went to a restaurant that did this like really uber beefy version of it. And so we're saying like triple the beef.
Sure.
So maybe go buy some great short rib. Instead of like some tenjang is like a little bit of brisket, like a little bit thrown in there. We're like, go hard with it.
Yeah.
And then you're basically just pouring over like anchovy stock or water or rice water.
Yeah.
And boiling it, raising to a boil, dropping for 10. You could add some potatoes in there or some radishes, and then and boil and braise until it's fork tender. It's all by visual. I just kind of work you through it.
Right.
Yeah.
That to me is simple. And really, when you offer a bowl of bubbling tenjang to your friends or to your kids, I think it's amazing. I think that it's such a delicious. You're like, wow, I just built this flavor, this like rich stew in my home in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I love it because it's so accessible for home cooks. But then, Deuki, you bring your incredible culinary training to it, because also you mentioned anchovy stock, right? Yeah. You have a tip of removing the guts from the dried anchovies for it makes a cleaner stock. Yeah, essentially.
Like refreshing. Yeah.
So I love that there's that both like your chef insight and also it's incredibly accessible overall for home cooks. Well, we're a show on cookbooks. We always talk about cookbooks at large a little bit before we transition to our game. So would love to know the role cookbooks have played in your lives, if there's particular authors or specific books that were important to you as Deuki, as you were training to be a chef, Matt, over the course of your journalism career, like name drop some stuff. Tell us what you love. New, old, we love to know what your, what
I
speaks
work
to
in,
you.
We'll go back and forth.
I work in cookbook publishing.
Right.
So I feel like all the authors at Crown Publishing Group tends to be empowered.
Yep.
I host my own podcast. This
Right.
is Taste, so I have a lot of them on, and it's hard to play favorites. I think Beyond the Great Wall is a book that I feel to me showed me how to do documentary cookbook publishing in a way that has really influenced the way I think about our books. I think Caroline Eden's books like Black Sea, Red Sand, are books that have a ton of essay writing in them, and really have real color, and you can really feel the energy. So I'm gonna go back. We're gonna play a little ping pong here because I feel like I have more to say. But let's go back to you.
Yeah, growing up in New York, so at 15, and I don't know if the listeners know even that time, like pre-YouTube, pre-Google.
Right.
The way you got content and food content was 3 hours on a Saturday, or New York Times, like every Wednesdays in the New York Times dining section. Food magazines that came out once a month. Like it's like unthinkable now because you're like, hey, I'll just search it right now, you know?
Right.
And back then I was so hungry for just more knowledge, right? Because working at a kitchen after school, like it's great. And that's where you practice. But the knowledge part of it, when you're on a subway for 2 hours back and forth, what are you reading? So I spent a lot of time at Kitchen Arts and Letters, and we were actually there 3 weeks ago in that little corner. Like I was there. Like, and so it was really cool in that nostalgic kind of, I used to be that kid that's hopefully going to read it. And hopefully now, 20 years later or so, some kid's going to read our book, hopefully, and be inspired and whatnot. Like I always say to every cook, whether you're in the front of the house or back of the house, the first cookbook I ever got, I know, is a Nobu cookbook, obviously, because I was working there and I was just whatnot. But the first book that I knew, I was like, oh my gosh, I read it and I was like, okay, great, let's go back to page 1, and just kept reading it. Was Setting the Table. I think Maddie mentioned a lot of the niche ones and a lot of the cool people ones. I'm gonna read one that I think should just be part of like cooking school, pre-reading. Just read it, because it's whether you're front of the house or back of the house, it's about your approach to why we're in the hospitality industry and we're in food service. And I think sometimes, I don't know if this is like a taboo thing to say, dare I say, and it's weird because I'm a benefactor of a lot of this interest and public interest in chefs and quite frankly the overglorification of what we do. But we are in the hospitality and we are here to serve, and that really brings it back to Setting the Table. Danny Meyer, obviously.
I love that book. And I have a couple more to add. I just feel like I have to like shout out 3 more books because they were, especially when I was thinking about Koreatown in those early days and writing that first book, but also now. One is Melissa Clark's Dinner, which I think in terms of like actual recipe writing, really tight recipe writing. Melissa's body of work is incredibly like solid. Like she's a great recipe writer, and that told me a lot. I thought Japanese Soul Food by Harasala and Tadashi Ono, to me, that they went to Japan and shot Japan in a way that was very accessible and cool. And that book is like a massive seller. It's still to this day sells tons of copies. And I thought that's like a really great way to do documentary, but also bring in great recipes. And the third, and it's cliche, but it's Yoda Matalangi's Jerusalem. Back in 2010 when that book was published around there, it really changed the way you thought about place. And it's telling the story of a culture that was undiscovered at the time from like the West. It felt like there wasn't really a book that represented, though of course there probably were. So I think when Koreatown came out, we were really inspired by Jerusalem. So.
Love it. Deuki, would you write a hospitality book? You said Setting the Table, and I know you've been so intentional. You've written online about your approach to hospitality. I was reading something you wrote recently where you said, New York taught me how to be a chef. Technical elements, running a kitchen. San Francisco is currently teaching me how to be a leader. You need both. I know you've been sort of coming into this space of being a voice in how hospitality manifests.
Absolutely.
Would you write a book?
Would I dare if Maddie wants to write a book?
Okay, there we go.
I only write books with Matt Rodbard. That's my deal. Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I love it. Okay, can't wait for whatever book
10 years later.
book 3 or book 4 is.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we always end with a little game. We could guys, we're out of time almost. I'm sorry because I want to talk about so many more recipes and these profiles of personalities. Like By
the way, Brian, your questions are like
they're great.
But we do a good amount of these, and we've done and gratefully so. But you're really, it's always refreshing.
Thank you for taking the time.
I appreciate it. There's so much more I wanted to get to. Like Danny and Yisun Lee. I lived in DC for like 8 years. Big fan of theirs. Like
so great.
Loved seeing like
and Angel Barreto. Both those guys at Mandu and Anju. Shout out to those guys. What a great scene, and they're at the center of it in Washington DC.
Yeah, I love it. So sorry we couldn't get to all of it, but we do want to end with a little game. So you've got our secret ingredient cards in front of you today, and we're going to play a little Koreaworld version of this. So you can shuffle, draw from the middle, wherever. Take a secret ingredient. Tell us how we might find it in Koreaworld, or how you might present it if someone said, "Hey, make a Koreaworld dish using this ingredient."
Interesting.
And if you get an easy one, we'll make you do another one.
Mine is great. Mine's a good one. So tell us who
Matt, you want to go first?
It's not easy because it's considered. So this is great. Mine's sea urchin. So I would say uni, sea urchin. Greece, Japan. Those are two places that you think about have uni, and then of course Santa Barbara.
Right.
Less common in Korean cuisine, but it brings to mind how Korea is a peninsula, and a peninsula is where you find seafood. So like Korean barbecue, beef barbecue is what Americans know about Korea. But if you go there, the streets smell like anchovy stock. They smell like seafood. They smell like dried squid. Jut is like fish guts, literally fermented, amazing, so flavorful. So to me, this reminds me how sea urchin is something that is found in Korea, and how seafood is the way I would do a sea urchin kimbap personally.
Okay.
So kimbap is the rice rolls. It's their Korean version of sushi rolls, but I would definitely make a roll with kim, which is seaweed, and uni, and I would have some very light soy sauce on it.
Sure.
I feel like I would want the uni to really speak, and not make it, but I would want to put it in like a rice roll format.
Yeah, I like that. Smart.
So mine is a little bit of a curveball, which I like. It's sriracha.
Wow,
Vietnamese. It's Californian because it's a great Vietnamese, one. But or the one that we're thinking about, and the one that we should be thinking about, was from California. The hot chili sauce, not a Korean ingredient,
right?
But it goes well. And my thing is, I don't mess with. I'm not one of those let's doctor something that's already perfect, right? If it is the way it should be, enjoy it the way it should be. So I wouldn't do much with sriracha. I would pair it with Korean fried chicken, like as a pairing. Don't mess around with sriracha. It's already really, really good as it is. I have a few bottles at home myself. I would say in terms of the Korean world, like what I think about and why, I don't know why I keep, maybe because I worked at Momofuku a lot for a while. They always like mayoed it. When I think about sriracha, I automatically go to sriracha mayo, and I hate doing that. Like Chipotle mayo, sriracha mayo. We have a great recipe with tenjang. So I've never done that with like gochujang and tenjang, which is like the fermented soybean, the mother sauces of Korean.
Right.
We went to, Maddie mentioned before that we went to a temple stay for a few days, and we were cooking with the monks there, like 3, 4 in the morning. The last place I would ever think to see something mayo was in that temple in the middle of the mountains. And then lo and behold, she has this beautiful steamed broccoli, and she's like, "Oh, this is a tenjang mayo." And I was just
the
like,
broccoli salad.
It's a great
in the book,
salad.
Right? Yeah.
And,
so good.
And it's vegan. It's a vegan mayo.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Temple stay.
Temple vegan.
Exactly.
Veganese.
Right.
We believe that it is vegan.
We believe.
Yeah.
Longer conversation about the flexibility of eggs in temple cuisine.
Okay.
And why? When I think about sriracha, I think of sriracha mayo, which is great. But even tenjang mayo, our book has a great recipe on that. Gochujang mayo as well. So I would say kind of veer on that realm. I don't know how we got.
Are you going to draw one?
Let's give.
Oh my gosh, I'm not the.
I think Brian gets to draw one.
You want to all do one more?
But we can do one more. I feel like this is a fun game. These are yours. You sell these, right?
No, I can't take credit.
Oh,
for
I
it.
thought you could. I thought you sold these.
I think you can buy it online, but I just repurpose it.
It could be Koreaworld or Korean anything.
So what's yours?
Korean tinge.
I got honey.
I love that one.
Honey.
Yep.
Ooh, my mind immediately goes to Korean barbecue, like a marinade, honey in a marinade, a glaze.
Yes.
I don't know where else would we.
Well,
find
it's a good
honey
one
in
because
Koreaworld?
just in the cooking alone, we're not fans, and we say it all the time, of straight sugar. So honey,
exactly.
fruit, we extract sweetness from pretty much everything except sugar. So honey is
good.
Or the honey butter chip, that was the craze.
Yuzu honey is a big ingredient. So yuzu and honey combined into yuzu cha. Which
yours is a hard one.
So mine
or
is...
maybe, No, I had one other thought, because I was also really intrigued by the street toasts. Honey in a street toast.
Yeah, that's a great... I love that. We shot the photo here at Queens, actually, the restaurant, and they've since closed the restaurant, but that's Deuki's invention. I love that.
It's the sweetness. It's a egg omelet toast. The kicker is like the ketchup and the sugar, and then some jam and jelly and honey.
Little honey.
So imagine like a savory sandwich with
some sweet savory combination. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right.
So I got durian, which is,
how do you do that?
For Korea, so I think the point I like to think about is Korea has a very limited growing season. It's almost like Minnesota. It's truly Minnesota. Sure. So tropical fruits are not part of the Korean larder, and it's really not going to enter into Korean cooking. I feel like Korea, that makes buying ingredients for Korean cooking very easy in America.
Yeah.
There aren't rarams, and there aren't like kumquats in the cooking inherently. Chefy versions, of course, can do that, but I think it makes it much easier to make this food. It's root vegetables, it's radish, it's cabbage, it's like things that grow really heartily. There's like perilla, there's like things that... So like durian, I like durian. I like the flavor a lot. It's quite complex, to say the least, and I think the memes around it being stinky is kind of funny, because I kind of like it, actually. I kind of like the taste of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would put a durian... I would actually put it in a cocktail. I'd do a durian. Okay. Yeah, I'd say like a soju, a durian soju.
Asian Korean pair type
thing. Like a Korean soju
nice
with durian. That would be pretty cool.
I like that. Okay, I thought we were going in a like this is the line direction.
Yeah, we can't do it.
But I appreciate.
Don't even front.
I appreciate the cocktail.
What do you got to do?
Okay,
so this last one, octopus.
Oh, great.
More so than anything, or talking about it specifically, this has just inspired me. So when I think octo, it's like how I go sriracha mayo, sriracha. I go octopus, I go charred octopus. I like open fire.
Ooh, I think it's great.
Once again, the tongue, some light marinade, because I do want the octopus to come through, but I want to cook it in this open fire. So
yeah.
Amazing. Well, Matt, Deuki, this has been so much fun. Congrats on Koreaworld. Thank you so much for being on Salt and Spine.
Brian, what an honor. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate you, Brian. Thank you so much.
And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you can find bonus content from today's show and all of our episodes on our website, saltandspine.com. If you like hearing from your favorite authors on Salt and Spine, and I hope you do, please click subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. We also love to see your ratings on Apple Podcasts. Our show today was produced by me, Brian Hogan Stewart, and our producer, Cleo Worster. Our kitchen correspondent is Sarah Varney, and the Salt and Spine original theme song was created by Brunch for Lunch. Salt and Spine is typically recorded at the Civic Kitchen in San Francisco's Mission District. The Civic Kitchen offers digital and in-person classes for home cooks, and you can find out more at civickitchensf.com. Thanks, as always, to Jen Nurse, Chris Bonimo, and the Civic Kitchen team, and to our friend Celia Sack at Omnivore Books. We'll be back next week with more stories behind the cookbooks you love.